Okay, so today we're scrubbing in for a pretty high stakes procedure. This isn't your everyday plant care guide. Nope. This is an emergency explainer on how to save a houseplant that is actively dying. The patient is critical, and honestly, time is running out.
And I really want to be crystal clear right from the jump. What we're about to walk through is basically the plant world's version of emergency surgery. Root rot is an aggressive, and I mean aggressive, fatal condition. It requires immediate, invasive action if you want any shot at saving your plant.
So, welcome to the ER. Our very first job, before we even think about picking up a single tool, is to understand what we're up against and get a definitive diagnosis. What we're fighting here is really a two-stage attack. It's a 1-2 punch. First, the soil gets so waterlogged that it completely cuts off the oxygen supply and literally suffocates the roots. Then, once that root tissue starts to die off, these nasty little water mold pathogens like Pythium move in for a full-scale invasion, and they just turn the whole root system to mush.
Now, here's the part that trips everybody up. It's so deceptive. The symptoms, the wilting, yellowing, drooping leaves, they look exactly like a plant that's desperate for a drink of water. This is the central challenge that fools so many of us into making the problem even worse.
So the single most critical thing you can do is check the soil. A thirsty plant wilts in dry soil. That makes sense, right? But a plant with root rot, it wilts in wet soil. Why? Because its roots are so damaged, they literally can't absorb the water they're sitting in. That right there, that's your number one clue. It's the big red flag.
But look, to be 100% certain, you've got to get your hands dirty. The only way to know for sure is to gently slide the plant out of its pot and just look. Healthy roots, they're firm, kind of flexible, and light-colored. Rotted roots are, well, they're exactly what they sound like. Soft, mushy, dark, and they might even smell bad. There is no mistaking them once you see it. All right, diagnosis confirmed. Our patient is critical. It's time to prepare our sterile field and get our surgical kit ready to go. First things first, get everything you need in one spot before you start. You do not want to be scrambling for something mid-procedure. So get your gloves, a tarp or some newspaper to contain the mess, a bowl of room temperature water, and, most importantly, sharp, sterilized cutting tools. And listen, sterilization is absolutely 100% non-negotiable. Clean every bit of dirt off your tools, then wipe them down with rubbing alcohol or let them soak in a bleach solution. And remember this critical rule. You have to re-sterilize your tool between each and every cut to avoid dragging those pathogens from the sick tissue right back onto the healthy tissue. And if you are going to use bleach, precision matters. You need a 10% solution. That's 1 part regular bleach to 9 parts water. Simple as that. And hey, this same ratio works perfectly for sterilizing any pots you might want to reuse later too. Okay, prep is done, we're scrubbed in, now we get to the most critical part of this entire rescue mission, this surgery itself. Your first objective is absolute. Get rid of all of that old soil, every last bit. You have to think of it as a biohazard. It's completely saturated with the pathogens that caused this whole crisis. And leaving any of it behind is just asking for a relapse. So gently wash it all away from the root ball. Now for the main event. It actually has a clinical name, radical debridement. And let me tell you, this is not a light trim. This is the aggressive surgical removal of all the dead and dying root tissue. The standard of care here is clear, and it is unforgiving. You have to keep cutting. Snip off every single root that is brown, soft, or mushy. You only stop when you see nothing but firm, healthy, light-colored tissue. You have to be brave here. Timid little cuts are not going to save your plant. Okay, after all the cutting is done, we need to disinfect the wounds and basically resuscitate the patient. We're going to use a solution of 1 part standard 3% hydrogen peroxide, the kind you get at the pharmacy, to 2 parts water. This stuff does 2 amazing things at once. First, it fizzes and releases a burst of pure oxygen to help those suffocated roots breathe again. And second, it kills any of those lingering pathogens on contact. It's a lifesaver. The surgery is done. We've removed the disease. Now it's time to move our patient into a sterile recovery room that's designed to make sure this never, ever happens again. Now, the new soil can't be just regular old potting mix. That's probably what got us into this mess in the first place. We need a custom prescription recovery mix. The whole goal here is maximum airflow and drainage. We're using chunky stuff like bark and perlite to create big air pockets so water just rushes through and the roots can actually breathe.
And the new home for the plant is just as crucial. It must have drainage holes. That is non-negotiable. A porous pot like terracotta is even better because it helps the soil dry out faster. And hey, don't put it in a giant pot. Pick one that's only about an inch or two wider than the root ball you have left. This prevents having a bunch of extra soil that just stays wet for too long.
So, the transplant is complete. But our patient is not out of the woods yet. Not even close. Its survival now depends entirely on following the post-op care plan. Okay, this right here might be the single most important and most counterintuitive step in this entire process. Are you ready? Do not water the plant for at least a week. I'm going to say that again. No water. You have to give those fresh surgical cuts on the roots time to dry out, heal, and callus over. Watering it now would be like pouring bacteria directly into an open wound. So here's the game plan moving forward. For that first week, zero water, but give it plenty of bright, indirect light to get those healing processes going. After that, you're only going to water when the top inch or two of that new, fast-draining soil is completely bone dry, and you're going to hold off on any fertilizer until you see consistent, healthy new growth. The whole system is just too fragile to handle it right now. So you did it. You performed a successful emergency intervention. You literally brought your plant back from the brink of death. But the real question now is, can you change the behavior, the overwatering habit that caused this whole disease in the first place? Because if you can't, you're just waiting for the next code blue.